The Grand Assembly Hall of Salasur floated in silent orbit, a cathedral of glass and silver suspended above a planet too old to speak anymore. It was built to impress and intimidate. Arched ceilings spun with constellations, marble floors imported from 3 dead worlds, and chairs carved for moons that no longer existed. Aliens in ceremonial silks and breathing tanks, crystal armor and pulsating membranes, lined the tiers in a theater of dominance. Every species with a fleet had sent a delegate. Every empire with a grudge had come to listen. The humans? They sent a woman with a thermos of coffee. General Celia Maris sat alone at the circular negotiation table, hands folded neatly, elbows off the polished stone. She wore the formal black of Earth's diplomatic corps, but no rank pins, just a thin leather bracelet wrapped twice around her wrist, frayed at the edge. Her hair was pinned, her posture impeccable, and her expression pleasant enough to make even the sharp-eyed archivists misinterpret her. Polite, soft, contained. The whisper spread before her boots even touched the floor. She hadn't spoken yet. She didn't need to. Celia understood the room before it did. She understood the cadence of contempt, the ritual of underestimation. Let them have it. Let them laugh. From a high podium, the Galactic Emperor himself, a being older than Earth's recorded history, shrouded in ceremonial fog, nodded for the first speaker to rise. Prince Vorik of the Velith Dominion stepped forward, radiating every inch of polished arrogance. His skin shimmered like wet obsidian, his forearms draped in red and gold imperial sashes. He didn't bow. He never had. "I speak today not for my throne," he began, voice like warm blades, "but for common sense. The humans send a female general. Maris. They claim it is diplomacy. I claim it is mockery." A ripple of laughter danced across the chamber. Some honest, some rehearsed. Celia didn't move. She blinked once, slow, unbothered. Vorik smiled, emboldened. Soft. Sentimental. Easily provoked. "These are not warriors, these are performers. And yet we permit their flags among us." He turned, locking eyes with her across the room. "Do you object, General?" She rose slowly, uncapping her thermos as she did. The faint scent of cinnamon drifted out, calm and human. "Object?" she asked, voice warm as a teacher's. "No, Prince. I'd never stand in the way of a man proving himself with a microphone." The room paused. Vorik narrowed his eyes. "Are you mocking this council?" "No," she said with a small smile. "Just your resume." A muffled sound escaped from the Brannick delegation. Laughter, barely stifled behind furred hands. Vorik's jaw tightened. Celia stepped forward, casually placing her thermos down. "It's true I'm soft. I moisturize. I cry during operas. I own a dog named Biscuit. But I've never once mistaken kindness for inability. You might." The Emperor raised a brow, expression unreadable behind mist and metal. "Enough," Vorik snapped, advancing toward her. "This charade of politeness grows stale." "Then allow me to freshen it up," she said, still smiling. He reached for her shoulder, a gesture wrapped in menace and formality. Celia caught his arm midair. To the audience, it looked effortless. Just a pivot, a twist of the wrist. But the sound, the crack, echoed like a gunshot. Vorik dropped to one knee, hissing in stunned silence. His dominant arm bent backward at an angle it wasn't designed to travel. She let go gently, like returning borrowed glassware. "Your posture was off," she said. "I was being helpful." No one spoke. Even the Emperor leaned forward. Celia stepped back, smoothed her sleeve, and retrieved her thermos. "If anyone else has feedback," she added, voice unshaken, "I'd be happy to address it." Prince Vorik staggered to his feet, clenching his broken arm against his chest. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Not without losing more than dignity. Celia offered a small bow and returned to her seat. Behind her, in the shadows near the Earth delegation, Captain Amani Chung watched the scene unfold through narrowed eyes. She whispered into a calm bead, "Phase 1 complete." She baited him. No reply, but a green light blinked twice on her sleeve. Acknowledged. Far above the hall, invisible to most scanners, for Earth ships powered down their cloaking fields by 1 degree, still hidden, still patient. In the chamber, whispers surged back to life. But now they carried weight. Something had shifted. The archivist queen, 10,000 years of memory embedded in her coral skull, tilted her head. "Humans do not strike first," she murmured. "This one struck second before the first strike occurred." Celia sipped her coffee. Later, when the council retired to its private atriums for diplomatic refreshments and subtle threats, Celia remained seated, reading a printed book, The Art of War, translated into 3 alien tongues. An obvious choice. She didn't care. A Brannick ambassador approached, thick-limbed and nervously clutching a translator. "You did not kill him," the creature said in broken English. "Why?" Celia looked up, closing the book. "Because," she said gently, "he wasn't worth the paperwork." The Brannick blinked slowly, trying to interpret the human nuance. "Would you have if he was?" Her smile didn't falter. "That's the secret, Ambassador. We never start the story with what we're willing to do. That comes at the end." He backed away, respectfully. That night, under the polished moons of Salisor, Prince Vorik sat in a medical pod, trembling with restrained rage. His father's voice buzzed through his mind, ancient and disapproving. "She let you live. You may not understand what that means yet, but you will." "I'll have her disgraced," Vorik snarled. "Humiliated." "No," the Emperor said softly. "You'll do nothing. Because you touched the edge of something ancient today." And she smiled while it happened. Elsewhere on the station, Celia reclined on a small cot in Earth's diplomatic quarters, staring at a hologram of Earth's moon. A worn photo sat tucked in her locker. Her and a younger brother, both in cadet uniforms. Only one of them made it past basic. She reached for her compad and typed a short message. "Contact initiated." He bit the hook. "We'll move on the leak next. Prepare the cloaked fleet to shift coordinates on my mark." The screen dimmed. Her eyes closed. And in the dark silence that followed, a dozen alien delegations reviewed surveillance footage of a broken arm and a human who didn't even flinch. They had mocked her softness. Now they'd started to wonder, what did it mean that she never raised her voice? And worse, what did Earth send when they weren't being polite? The official apology request arrived before dawn in a data scroll sealed in violet crystal, hand-delivered by a 7-foot-tall Zith diplomat with no mouth and too many elbows. It read, "Earth must denounce General Celia Maris, deliver reparations for harm to royal blood, and submit to temporary sanction or risk expulsion from the Galactic Accord." The seal of the Velith Dominion pulsed at the bottom, as if expecting its own power to be persuasive. Celia Maris skimmed the scroll while eating oatmeal. Real oatmeal, smuggled aboard by a stubborn aide who insisted humans functioned poorly without texture in the morning. She scooped a bite, made a satisfied sound, and tossed the scroll into the food recycler. Captain Imani Chung stood across from her, arms crossed, lips twitching. "That's going to go over well." "I know," Celia replied, chewing. "But I'm fresh out of royal condolences." "You did snap his arm." "He insulted my species." "Poor form. Poor grip." Celia placed her spoon down. "Besides, I aimed below the elbow. That's restraint." Chung shook her head. "The Dominion isn't looking for restraint. They're looking for a reason. And I gave them one." Celia rose, her tone gentling into something precise. "Now they'll escalate. Publicly. They have to. Honor demands it. And when they do," she paused, straightening the cuff of her jacket, "they breach Article 9 of the Accord." "Illegal aggression," Chung murmured, eyes sharpening. "War under the guise of wounded pride." "Exactly. We don't start wars. We hold the door while others step in." Celia smiled. "Then we close it." In the Galactic Forum, rumors spread like spores. Maris hadn't responded to the apology demand. Earth remained publicly silent. The Dominion grew louder. Delegates debated behind closed membranes. Some whispered Earth was reckless, unfit. Others remembered Soul Archive footage, the siege of Titan, the 8-minute retaliation, the quiet destruction of the Uvar home fleet using tactics. No one understood even after reviewing the logs. But humans smiled, and joked, and offered coffee. So maybe they weren't dangerous anymore. At mid-cycle, Celia attended a diplomatic luncheon hosted by the Archivist Queen. The tables were grown from petrified vines. The air was laced with music composed for species without ears. She sat alone at the end of one table, slicing her fruit with a dull metal fork. Ambassador Virish, an eel-like delegate from the Dryeth consulate, slithered beside her. "General," he said, "rumors say you plan no apology." "I don't plan anything," Celia replied. "I prepare." Virish blinked both sets of eyes. "They say Earth will be exiled." Celia offered a small smile. "From this circle? Perhaps. But not from history." He hesitated. "Do you know what they call you?" "Oh, the list's long. But today—" "Saw Fong." Virish looked uncertain whether it was insult or myth. She set her fork down. "That's flattering." Moments later, a new envoy entered. Tall, draped in Dominion robes, every movement calculated. Not Vorik. His cousin, High Advisor Levick, arrived in his place. He stood without preamble and addressed the assembly. "The Dominion hereby declares Earth in violation of the peace mandate. We move for expulsion. Effective immediately. No warning. No build-up. Just raw declaration, tossed like a blade." The room shuddered in noise. The Emperor remained still, unmoved in his fog throne. Celia stood slowly. "I wasn't aware accusations replaced evidence," she said mildly. "When did that rule change?" Levick sneered. "You crippled our prince." "Temporarily. You humiliated the Empire." "I corrected his form." He slammed a clawed hand on the table. "You dare laugh in the face of judgment?" "I laugh," Celia said softly, "because you've mistaken restraint for weakness. You think you've made the first move. And you think you haven't already lost." That silenced the room. Celia turned toward the Emperor. "I request a formal arbitration review. Let the peace accord speak." The Emperor spoke at last, voice brittle and echoing through unseen channels. "Granted. Earth has until the next cycle to present counterclaim. Until then, no ship moves, no threat stands." Levick bowed stiffly. "Very well. But know this, human. When this ends, your planet will beg to be forgotten." "I doubt it," Celia murmured. "We've never begged well." Hours later, Earth's hidden fleet adjusted course. Just enough to catch the shadow of the Dominion's mobilization. Every ship had been pre-fueled. No weapons primed. Just relays humming with potential. In her quarters, Celia received a call on her private channel. No visual, just sound. "Ma'am," came the voice of Commander Elias Rourke from the ESB shroud, parked in a shadow 0.3 clicks off a gas giant. "Telemetry confirms it. Dominion fleet moved into neutral zone. We have them on record." She smiled slightly. "Good. Send the file to the Emperor's scribes, time-stamped. Keep a duplicate off-chain." "Yes, ma'am. Ready for authorization." "Not yet," she said. "Let them sweat through their smugness." "Copy that. Earth out." Chung entered moments later, carrying an old datapad. "Got a leak," she said. "Not us. Someone else broadcasted footage of the prince's injury. Slowed it down. Played it over classical music. Galactic net's eating it alive." "Public humiliation," Celia said, sitting. "That'll push Levick harder. They're demanding we release a public statement." "We already did." Chung blinked. "Did I miss that?" "No. It was metaphorical." Celia leaned back. "He tried to grab me. I corrected him. That's the whole message. But we need more than wit if this becomes war." Celia tilted her head. "You think I'm witty? I think you're a loaded revolver wrapped in a sweater." "That's sweet." They paused as a ping arrived. An encrypted file from a silent watcher on the Dominion's internal comnet. Levick had issued a Phase 1 war readiness signal, quietly masked as a routine drill. They'd moved ahead of protocol. They had officially breached the treaty. Celia tapped the display. This is what we needed. So we're in the right? We always were. Now we're also justified." She stood. "Send it to the Emperor. No embellishments. Just the facts. Let their own arrogance hang them." And then, Celia looked out the viewport at Saliser's planet-wide sea, wrinkled like old skin beneath cloud shadows. Then we stopped smiling. Later that cycle, the Emperor summoned her alone. No court, no audience. Just fog, silence, and 2 chairs carved from comet stone. He studied her for a long time. "You understand what you've done?" "I do." "You baited a prince." "I responded to an invitation." "You escalated a feud." "No," Celia said, voice iron soft. "I revealed it. They escalated. I documented." The Emperor folded his hands. "Earth's restraint is unnatural. So is patience. But it ages better than pride." He looked down. "If I do nothing, they will act unilaterally." "If you do nothing," Celia said gently, "Earth will act surgically." There was no anger in her, just precision, the kind that unsettled more than rage ever could. "I've seen your wars," the Emperor murmured. "The one where you never fired a shot, and the enemy vanished anyway. What was it called?" "We didn't name it," she said, "because there was no one left to remember." A long silence. Then, "Go." She rose, bowed once, and walked back through the marble halls like nothing had happened. On her desk, waiting, was a small glass case. Inside, a broken royal sash. The Dominion had sent it as a symbol of defiance. Celia ran her fingers across the fabric, then snapped the case shut. It made the same sound as bone. The Dominion fleet moved with elegance and cruelty, like predators that knew they were being watched and relished it. 30 ships, each lined with silver crests and humming with charged plasma, breached the neutral boundary by 0.4 parsecs and began to drift. Not advance, drift. A silent dare wrapped in legal ambiguity. On Sailor 4, the Galactic Council did nothing. They issued no warnings, no condemnations. They waited. General Celia Maris did not. She stood aboard the ESS Marigold, orbiting just outside the conflict perimeter, sipping her 3rd cup of coffee. The bridge was quiet, professional. No one asked questions unless they already knew the answer. A hologram of the Dominion fleet shimmered before her, each ship annotated, tracked, and tagged with a rotating log of past violations and weaknesses. Her eyes didn't blink often. She was watching their formation. "It's ceremonial," said Lieutenant Osari, adjusting the light filters. "They're not tactically positioned." "No," Celia murmured, "they're performing. They want the galaxy to see the Empire's wounded pride take the stage." "Should we move to intercept?" "Not yet." "Orders from the Council?" "None that matter." The bridge fell silent again. Commander Chung appeared beside her, arms clasped behind her back. "Our leak worked. The footage of Levick's fleet entering the zone is everywhere. Even the Brannock are tweeting jokes." "Good," Celia said. "Let the public eat popcorn while the predators circle." "You're calm." "I'm always calm," Celia replied. "That's what they hate most." She stepped away from the projection, heading to the war room, where Earth's senior officers waited. The doors slid open with a hiss, revealing a circular chamber surrounded by displays, galactic maps, transmission logs, troop positions. At the center, a single chair facing an old, analog board covered in chalk diagrams. Celia erased a curve from the map, drew 3 new lines, and circled the Dominion cruiser labeled the Spear of Viacor. "This one is the heart," she said. "Remove it, and the fleet hesitates. They rely on intimidation, not adaptation." Colonel Fenn tapped the table. "We take it out, and the rest fold." "No," Celia said. "They pause. Long enough for the public to catch up to the truth." "And what is the truth, General?" Celia turned. "That Earth didn't come to the Forum to make friends. We came to bait a trap, and they've stepped into it." A murmur went around the table. No shock, just clarity. "We've been planning this?" Fenn asked. "For months," Celia said. "Maybe years. The moment they erased the Tauran outpost and blamed pirates. The moment the Sears moon colony vanished. We knew, but we needed them to start the war." Chung nodded slowly, so Earth could end it. Celia lifted a hand and pointed to the stars etched across the dome above them. "The galaxy thinks we're patient because we're slow. That's the mistake. We're patient because we plan." The words were calm, chilling in their certainty. Back on Sailor, Levick gave an address in the council hall, broadcasting across 10 systems. "The Dominion will not be insulted by lesser species," he thundered. "Earth hides behind jokes and smiles, but we see through it. They are unpredictable, unstable, unfit for peace." He turned toward the camera. "We demand her removal. General Maris must step down, or Earth will no longer be considered a civilized participant." Celia watched from her quarters, legs crossed, a spoon in her tea. She raised an eyebrow as he paused for applause. There was none. She turned to Chung. "Do they know we've jammed their fleet's secondary comms?" "No." "Good. Do we tell them?" "No," Celia said. "We let them try to fire blind." The next day, Celia walked into the Galactic Forum in full dress uniform, not black, but silver, the color reserved for last negotiations before wartime. She made no speech. She simply handed the Emperor a data crystal. "What is this?" he asked, weary. "Proof. The Dominion's invasion plans. 7 worlds, 13 colonies, scheduled within 30 cycles." He stared at the crystal. "You obtained this illegally." "I obtained it," she said. "I can't control how justice arrives. Only that it does. You're giving me no choice." "No," Celia said, voice soft as falling dust. "I'm giving you clarity." That evening, the Dominion fleet began to shift, thinking they had initiative. They didn't know Earth had already calculated every likely position, every formation. Celia issued a single command across 12 cloaked Earth ships. "Operation Sofang. Begin." The stars did not blink, but the shadows beneath them moved. From asteroids that had appeared lifeless for years, Earth ships unfurled like wings from cocoons. No blasters fired, no declarations made. Instead, Earth's assault was data, code, interference, jammed navigations. Cloaked drones injected command loops into Dominion ships. Bridge lights dimmed, engines locked. One by one, Dominion vessels found themselves spinning slowly, helplessly, with no one to blame but their own systems. Levick screamed into a frozen comm that couldn't transmit. His ship's AI began playing Earth jazz. Saxophone, smooth and relentless. He couldn't shut it off. On the Spear of Viacor, the crew panicked as their weapons bays opened to vacuum, and nothing responded. The targeting systems looped back to internal systems. Every press of a button armed a harmless blinking light on the ship's own wall. In the forum, Celia stood before the council again. "The Dominion has violated the accord. Earth does not wish war, but it will not tolerate abuse disguised as formality." She turned to Levick's empty seat. "I broke a prince's arm because it was the only thing I could do in that moment. Now we break something larger." The Emperor looked at her with something ancient behind his eyes. "You planned this." "I planned peace," Celia said. "I just accounted for failure." "And if they don't surrender?" Celia's eyes didn't soften. "Then we erase them, carefully, like a stain from history." He leaned back. "The galaxy won't understand." "They don't have to," she replied. "They just have to remember what happens when humans stop smiling." Later, in her quarters, she opened a locked drawer. Inside, a small pin shaped like Earth's first satellite. She held it in her palm. Chung entered. "They've requested talks." "Of course they have." "We have them cornered." "No," Celia said. "We have them exposed." Chung hesitated. "Why not finish it?" "Because," Celia said, voice low, "the next move isn't military. It's psychological." She placed the satellite pin down, exactly in the center of the table. "Now we show them what Earth calls mercy." And for the first time, she didn't smile. The silence was unnatural. Not just the absence of sound, but the kind that made even seasoned tacticians pause before speaking, as if the air itself had taken on memory and was holding its breath. The Galactic Council chambers remained dimmed, though no one had declared mourning. Mourning for what? The Dominion hadn't fallen. Not yet. But they had been humiliated. General Celia Maris stood once again in the heart of the forum, still and composed, a deliberate echo of the first time she entered it. But everything had changed. There was no laughter now, no sideways glances, only eyes that no longer underestimated her. She turned toward the Emperor, who sat in silence beneath his ever-present mist. "We gave the Dominion a chance to speak," she said evenly. "They answered with pride. We offered correction. They responded with escalation. And now, you paralyzed a fleet," a voice snapped. One of the Velith's remaining delegates, smaller than Levick, younger, face still flushed with fury and fear. "We interfered with no life support," Celia said. "No deaths. No damage. Only isolation and surrender. You hijacked our ships." "No," she corrected softly. "We introduced mirrors. You were hijacked by your own assumptions." A murmur spread. The Archivist Queen, long neutral in such affairs, finally spoke. "You used their ego as your weapon." Celia inclined her head. "As history has taught us." The Emperor raised a hand, stilling the chamber. "What does Earth want?" Celia met his gaze. A reminder that diplomacy is not an act of submission. It is an exercise in patience, and patience has its limit. "And the Dominion will be left intact," she said, to the shock of many. "We are not conquerors." The Velith delegate stared at her as if she had grown teeth from her forehead. "You crippled our fleet and call it mercy?" "Yes," she said, "because we could have done more. We chose not to." The Emperor's voice was gravel under time. "And if they strike again?" Celia stepped forward. Her boots did not echo, but her words did. "Then Earth will not remind. Earth will remove." Gasps rippled through the chamber, not at the threat, but at how quietly it had been delivered. Outside in orbit, Earth's fleet waited in controlled silence. No weapons were hot, no transmissions sent. And yet every species within sensor range had taken a half-step backward from the edge of provocation. Earth had not fired a shot, but Earth had moved the line and dared anyone to test its patience again. In the privacy of her ship, Celia finally allowed herself a moment. Not of rest, rest was for after, but of reflection. She stood before a hologram of the Dominion's last known aggressive formation. It flickered now, broken, unrecognizable. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Chung entered quietly. Message from the Velith royal chamber. Celia didn't turn. "Let me guess. They want to talk. They want to surrender their military ambitions for the next 10 cycles, in exchange for a public statement from Earth clarifying that this was a misunderstanding." Celia smiled faintly. "They want to save face. They want to save something." She finally turned, eyes sharp, posture still perfect. "Tell them I'll issue a statement. One sentence." Chung waited, pen ready. Celia spoke. "The incident proved that peace remains a viable choice." "That's it. That's the offer. They can wrap it in velvet. I don't care. But the galaxy will know." Chung nodded, then paused. "There's more." Celia raised a brow. "Multiple species have requested formal alliances. The Brannick, the Zilhive cluster, even the Yarihel. All after the transmission, all after the silence." Celia sat slowly, folding her hands. "They're not aligning out of friendship," Chung added carefully. "They're scared." "Good," Celia murmured. "Fear is the beginning of respect, and respect is the soil peace can grow in." Moments later, in the Galactic media feed, Earth's statement was released. It was exactly 15 words long. Debates would rage for months about its meaning, whether it was a threat, a reassurance, or both. Within hours, diplomatic traffic surged toward Earth. Peace envoys, alliance offers, technology trades, and carefully worded apologies, some of them poetic, most of them desperate. But not all reactions were measured. In a dark system on the edge of Dominion territory, a rogue Velith commander, young, furious, and armed with an ego sharper than his fleet sensors, launched an unauthorized attack on one of Earth's minor colonies. A scientific outpost with barely a shield, mostly civilians. His ships arrived, fired, and then stopped, because nothing was there. The outpost had been evacuated 2 days prior. In its place, a black monolith with no identifying markings. The Velith hailed it. No answer. Approached it. Still silence. They fired a test shot. The monolith responded, not with weapons, but with a data pulse. Within seconds, every ship's system began running human code. A strange, looping message, accompanied by piano music. You broke the rules. We broke your expectations. One by one, the Velith ships powered down. The commander tried to scream into the void, but his comm system played nothing but a single word, spoken in Celia's voice. Soft. By the time Dominion High Command learned the incident, the fleet had been towed, tow lines attached by autonomous Earth drones. No humans in sight. No violence. Just efficiency. The message had been delivered. On Salicer 4, the Council met in emergency session. The Emperor looked tired now. Not weak, but weathered by the realization that something had shifted in the galaxy's core. For centuries, the great powers had danced with each other, claws out, teeth polished. And then Earth had walked in, smiling, waiting, and only when provoked had it moved. He summoned Celia Maris privately. No guards, no fanfare, just old walls and older silence. She stood before him, not saluting, just watching. He asked the question without ceremony. What are you? Celia didn't answer right away. Then she stepped forward and placed something on the table between them. A bullet, unfired, polished, human-made. This, she said, is what we are. He looked at it. A threat. No. A possibility. He gestured for her to sit. She didn't. You arrived here playing the diplomat. I still am. You outmaneuvered the Dominion, turned their strength into a weakness. I gave them a mirror, she said. They broke it. You speak softly. You move precisely. You smile while planning war. Celia's voice dropped, not harshly, but with gravity. Because smiling is how we kept our teeth hidden long enough to evolve. The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then he gestured to the bullet again. What happens if someone fires it? Celia tilted her head. Then history becomes prophecy, and Earth becomes legend. He closed his eyes, exhaled, and nodded once. You win. No, she said, picking the bullet back up. We waited. As she turned to go, he called out once more. Do you want power? Celia paused. We want peace. He narrowed his eyes. Liar. She smiled gently over her shoulder. Only when we have to be. Back aboard her ship, as Earth's fleet began withdrawal to peacetime stations, Celia finally stood alone on the observation deck. The stars were quiet now, not because Earth had silenced them, but because they were listening. Chung joined her, holding a small glass vial. Inside, a shard of the Velith prince's ceremonial sash, retrieved from a neutral diplomat. You want to keep it? Chung asked. Celia shook her head. Burn it. Chung raised an eyebrow. Symbolic gesture? No. Sanitation protocol. It smells like arrogance. She turned back to the window, watching the stars blink like Morse code. So it's over? Chung asked softly. For now. And later. Celia didn't look away. Then we remind them again. And somewhere, across the void, another young alien would grow up hearing the whispered warnings. If they smile, run.